Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
And you're wondering why we probably keep switching up the intro a little bit. Well, I mean, that is kind of the topic of today's show, besides not the intro, but the wondering. You know, what's good about wondering? Is it a lost thing, right? What does wonder and mystery actually mean? And we're going to have Mike Creevy on the show today. Mike and I recorded this before I recorded this intro, and I was actually on the location. I was at work during my lunch break, so again, the audio might be a little blurry, a little echoey on my end, so I apologize to you in advance. Which again, you're supposed to be listening to Mike and not so much me. But and again, in advance, I'm sorry if it's a little echoey, a little not clear cut like it should be. But Mike's been on the show quite a few times already, and like I tell him at the end of today's show is, it's always a deep conversation. It's always rich in detail, and you kind of leave each meeting, each conversation we have, kind of still thinking about that a lot. More of a mystery, like I said, wondering about stuff, and. Basically, I'm in communication, and he requested this topic. He said he's been kind of adding to this topic for a while now, and really just thinking about stuff. And yeah, it's a really good thing with all our apps on our phone. AI, huge thing in the world, especially in the podcast industry. As a lot of the cover photos are AI and stuff. It kind of takes a little wonder out about stuff. And wonder, we'll get into it, but self-reflection, what did the disciples think? Mystery, what does it mean? What does it mean? All that stuff. So again, big thanks to Mike for making this happen. Again, like I said, he's been on a few times, and again, just being flexible and picking a good time and doing it. A little bit about Mike, and just to refresh your memory, he does teach on quarterly. When this recording took place for Homeschool Connections, my old alma mater. So make sure to go check that out. He's also the host of The Gracious Guest. You can find it on YouTube as well as thegraciousguest.org. He is the Youth and Young Adult Ministry Director and Confirmation Coordinator, Theology Teacher, High School on-site and online, and some college students, Catholic radio broadcaster, producer, and show host. He was in the Harrisonburg Diocese, I'm looking on, I know how to say it, the seminary, there we go. Army intelligence, like we talked about before on the show, kind of the Army aspect of, stuff, which is really good. Operations officer in WAC, war vet. Education, the Catholic University of America and Franciscan University of Stewartville. Blessed husband and father and dog steward, in parentheses. Dog man. I would say that's probably where we would disagree. He's a dog guy, I'm a cat guy. But, that's one of the things that we might disagree on. Again, back to today's show, is on wonder. And it might leave you wondering why you haven't wondered more. So, settle in. It's a good, great chat with Mike. And again, without further ado, let's dive into it with Wonder with Mike Creevy. All right, and yeah, we're back with Mr. Mike Creevy, everyone. Again, just thankful for Mike's time and his commitment to coming back on the show. One of the few guests who really been on the show for a few times. So again, thanks, Mike, for your time today. And this topic, wonder, has really got me wondering what we're going to talk about. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Billy. I appreciate it. This is I always, if ever I'm on something more than once, I always just something must be going right. So
Right.
I'm honored. Yeah, well, it's funny because there's some anecdotes along the way and some things I'll share. And when you and I had been talking about what to talk about, I had mentioned how this has been something I've presented, and I have some slides I'll use that I think are kind of nice. So I've presented on it in the past, this specific presentation, but not on YouTube before. And we're releasing this in conjunction too, so my audience will hopefully enjoy this as well. I'm sitting in the guest seat instead of the host seat, this time. But basically, it's let me just put it up here quick. This is something that's I always start off with this story, this short story. It's the irony of it is it's something my dad said years ago that actually like has in many ways like made me sort of sad, but it's not his fault or anything like that. So it's like I wanted like the little caveat up front. But when I got my first smartphone, which for me was like in my like late 20s or early 30s or something, like it was not, I didn't grow up with one by any means, of course.
Sure.
And we were discovering just all those basically cool things that are so great about them, and the ability to answer questions quickly and look things up so quickly and all this, and that was new. And I forget even what it was some obscure music thing or something we were talking about, and I found the answer real quick on my phone, and he just, like sincerely was like, that's crazy, that's awesome. He's like, you don't even have to wonder anymore. And he was, of course, speaking about like the benefits of the technology, but I've had this broader, like over the years, that's been a springboard for like, but is it good? And he would agree with me, no, it's not, right? Like an actual human life to never wonder and like always have every little answer immediately at our fingertips. And so that's kind of the dark side of it, but the more positive side of it, I'll show you. I have a little map here I like to use.
Oh yeah.
This kind of led to this now probably 10 years or so of a theme that comes up a lot in my own just personal interest, my own study and like theology study, my teaching in the classroom and out of the classroom, and just again, it's just like life, trying to like live a more authentically human life. So I basically go through in the time we have, and this will be a little bit more condensed version of it, but I think it'll give people some good food for thought. First of all, like you said, what is wonder? Then there's this thing called the two myths, which is a really cool little meditation that I've found in some different writings. I've got a lot of quotes and some great people to reference to everybody here today. And so if anybody wants to kind of go deeper into a lot of these things that I'll share, I'm basically just sharing insights from people much smarter and holier than me. So, and then my own little kind of ministry slogan I've used for years, like on my YouTube channel and stuff, this idea of don't forget to wonder, or like living with wonder and awe is something I also have on some of my stuff.
Yeah, that's where you get it from. Okay.
Yeah, right. And like, I just feel like how much better I feel and how much more full of a life I feel in those moments where I'm doing this. And quick little, again, disclaimer, I'm not preaching here. I mean, I need this, I think, as much as anybody, maybe more,
Sure.
And I'm well aware of how, difficult it can be for us to lose that sense of wonder. And so we'll go through some of that. But this, like, just I'll probably spend the least amount of time with this because this is stuff that's important, but also that it comes up later and people can look this up later if you want. But basically, a lot of, especially when you study this, like from the theology standpoint, you're going to come at it a lot of times through Greek. Not surprisingly, like New Testament was written in Greek. So we get a lot of this insight into this Greek word, which is pronounced here thaumazo. It's the verbal form of it, or thauma and noun form. What's amazing is this appears dozens of times, over 40 times in the New Testament.
Wow.
And that's right off the bat. Like we get this idea that like there's something about wonder, or sometimes translated like marvel, it's this idea of basically being surrounded by or connected with mystery, to be a feeling of surprise mingled with admiration caused by something beautiful or unexpected, something that you can't explain, something that's unfamiliar. And what's neat though about these moments of wonder is there's there's still something familiar in it, though. Like, that you feel connected in a moment, right? So and if you think in your own life, any moment you've really felt that sense of wonder or awe, I think it makes sense that we all kind of would point to both this seemingly paradoxical situation, right? Like something
Yeah.
completely otherly, but there's something similar in it too, and it's that you can't really describe it. And what's really neat, Bishop Barron talks about this a lot, that word mysterion there, that's what it looks like in Greek, where we get our word mystery from. There's something with the etymology of it that has to do with like to close the mouth, or to be utterly like just spellbound and completely like like I feel like it's the origin of that phrase, I guess you had to be there.
Yeah.
Right? That we
Sure.
use sometimes, like, here, let me explain to you what the sunrise, was like the other day. Like, that's not going to be interesting, right? But like for you to
Right.
experience it will be. And so yeah, so that's a big, like, awestruck, marvel. We see that obviously like used as the title of the great comic book, series and everything, or that whole enterprise of superheroes and stuff. Transcendence, all these things are kind of mixed in there.
Sure.
But what's really cool too, and I'm really dating myself here. I don't know if you'll get this reference. You might. I don't
Okay.
know. Some of our older viewers might. But mystery. What's neat is it's not what we normally think of. And I always love Columbo. Did you ever see Columbo?
I've
It's
seen
this old like
commercials. Yeah.
70s era, somewhat kind of bumbling detective. And what was always neat about him was he was actually incredibly brilliant, and he had it figured out. But he basically, like, he's always playing around with these criminals who think he's just a bumbling fool, and he's on to them the whole time, of course.
Right.
So that's kind of the big twist usually with those episodes. And what was neat about Columbo was, it was a little bit of a different way of doing mysteries, which some other shows have done too, where you have like, we see the murder or whatever, like the very first thing in the episode is we know everything, right, as
Right.
an audience.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of following along with Columbo as he tries to get to where you're at, which is pretty cool. But usually with mystery, I think the way we normally think of that word is it's like it's something I have to crack, right, or solve. Like it's implied that it's something we're gonna figure out. We're
Right.
gonna bring it to our level. But the theological sense of mystery is much more like it's an ever opening up to. It's something that is by definition beyond our reach, something you can't pull down to yourself. It's about becoming open to this, or receiving, right, this experience that draws you up and out. You know,
Right.
um,
That's
like
true.
yeah. So that's a big part of it here. So not so much that, more like this theological encounter with the Trinity kind of thing.
And if I
Or
may,
like,
Mike,
yeah, please go
I
ahead.
so just prepping for the show today and doing stuff, and when you mentioned wandering 40 times in the Bible, and like you're talking about mystery, does that apply to like the apostles? Like, for example, like just in the past weekend's gospel reading, we had the feeding the 5,000 and that type of stuff, where they kind of maybe doubted, like, yeah, sure, Jesus, you
Yeah.
can't make all that. But does that apply to those scenarios as well?
Yeah, I think so. And now, do you mean
Yeah.
at least part of that, like their encounter with Christ, like in his earthly ministry or in their
Yeah.
ministry, or yeah,
His
I
oath.
think.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so nice, the sort of everyman kind of nature of like, what's, at least when I hear the Gospels, when like we hear these very relatable apostles who are like, they're not like in the earthly ministry, they're never described in like glowing terms, really, or not much. I mean, they're lauded when they get it right, but most of the time they seem to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Or they're just these, like, Jesus is like, watch and learn, boys. Like, come,
Right.
get into the boat, get out of the boat, follow me this way, follow me that way. It's not like about them, right? They were in the right place, the right time, you know. Um, but which actually reminds me of the next point here is I love here. You Lord of the Rings fan at all?
Oh, I love
Our
it.
Tolkien fans out there, I love this
Oh, yeah.
artwork of like Lothlorien, which is what I always like about Lothlorien is there's the mist, like the darkness, like the night time kind of, but it's like also light. It's like glowing. There's like this, because there's this experience of the shrouded nature of Christ, right? But the
Right.
light coming from within. And I love this quote when Sam and Frodo are in Lothlorien. Sam says, "If there's any magic about, it's right down deep where I can't lay my hands on it," in a manner of speaking. And then Frodo says, "You can feel it, or you can see it and feel it everywhere." And then Sam I love it. Sam says, "Well, you can't see nobody working it." You know, and I just love that idea of like these moments of like, I'm in this enchanted, like there's something about this place or this, you know, this castle or this sunset, like, well, you know, whatever it is. There's something more going on here than meets the eye, but I can't see what's working it, you know?
Right. That's so
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah, or like, you ever seen Ratatouille?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I
I
love
love
that
I
one.
love the like that grimacing, angry, like the villain, and the you know he's completely undone by tasting that. You know, he's completely transported instantaneously back to his childhood, right in the kitchen with
Right.
like his grandmother, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
So
the
funny.
it's a brilliant scene, but like we've had, I think most of us, maybe all of us, a moment like that where like I can't make that happen. You know, you smell a perfume that, you know, someone you love who passed away used to wear, and like, everything comes back at once, and it's like, oh my gosh,
Right.
you know. And so these are all, I think this fits in this idea of the two myths, and this is going back to, I'll show us a picture here in a second, but I kick this off with the Didache, right? It's like one of the oldest, if not the oldest Christian document we have, right,
Right.
outside of the New Testament. I love it. It starts off by saying, two ways there are. It's very Yoda-esque, right? Two ways there are, one of life and one of death, and there is a great difference between the two ways.
Very true.
It's
That's
like
very true.
the understatement of like forever. And that, so I like that quote to kind of kick off here. That's actually a little picture of a fragment we have of the Didache. But I've got a bunch of slides like this where it's just like a particular figure I want to highlight. But Tom Howard, of happy memory, he passed away a few years ago. He was just a brilliant literary mind, a Catholic convert in his like mid years. But he wrote this book before he became Catholic, back in like 1968, I think. So he was in his 30s. And he was a huge, follower of Lewis and Tolkien. He actually knew C.S. Lewis a little bit, and I think he taught English in Boston area for many, many years. But brilliant Catholic thinker and writer. And he wrote this book, I can't recommend it highly enough, called Chance or the Dance, A Critique of Modern Secularism. Again, like 1968 or 69. But like, so some of the what's interesting about references it in is are dated. there's Like, he these talks about like Andy immortal, Warhol and stuff, observations just about life and reality, and curious things about language and this, what you could really say is maybe like the sacramental nature of everything.
Sure.
And again, like I said, he wrote that before he became Catholic, so he's already sort of on this intuition at that time. But there's a bunch of neat observations I want to share from him, where he sets up in the beginning of this book. He basically is arguing that there used to be, there was an old myth and now there's a new myth, like an old way of, and he's not saying fiction, but the old way almost across all of humanity of looking at reality, and this new, like, secularist modernist kind of reductionist kind of view. He said the old myth, the myth sovereign in the old ages, was that everything means everything, or you could say, or at least something, like everything means something,
Right.
and maybe everything else, like it's all connected. He said the myth sovereign in the new is that nothing means anything. The old myth traveled upward and outward, the new myth travels downward and inward. And I was like, yes, like that's like in one sentence or two sentences. I think that's the whole problem, right?
Right.
Everything's me and, now and now and now and me and me and me. I mean, and it's just, it can't satisfy you
No.
because it's over, and then it's over again. It's over again, and
Short-lived. Yeah.
and it's this idea that like life is equal to or less than it seems to be, but not more than, right?
Right.
Like this, the elimination, reductionism, right? A gradual rejection of transcendence, and actually a great fan of C.S. Lewis as Tom Howard was. I have to quote Lewis here because Lewis fans will love this. If you guys know the story in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, for the Narnia series.
I've seen the movie. I haven't read the book, but I've
Yeah,
seen the movie. Yep.
I don't remember if so in this. I don't know if they had this in the film or not, but there's this great scene where they meet in this sort of mystical voyage across the sea. They meet this bizarre character named Ramandu, who's a retired star, but like in human form. It's a strange, like wizard-like character, and he's explaining how he used to be a star, and this whole process of rebirth and stuff. That phoenix kind of figure there above him, but one of the side characters, Eustace, the boy character, who says quite reductionistically, he's sort of shocked. He goes, "In our world, a star is a huge ball of flaming gas." And Ramandu wisely responds in correction, even in your world, my son, that is not what a star is, but only what it is made of. You know, and that beautiful, like Lewis, as Lewis does, right? That idea of there's a star. Like, don't let yourself be unimpressed by a star. You know, I mean, were the ancients more right when they said that, like, the angels were guiding the heavenly bodies? And we were like, oh no, it's forces of nature. Well, yeah, but is that it? Like, what if the
Right.
forces of nature are the mechanisms in God's will that the angels use to guide them? It's just like, why would you want to believe something so truncated, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
That makes sense.
and again, I'm rambling here. So again,
Oh,
interject anytime you want. I've just got it's a lot of stuff like this, right? These
yeah.
these things of like, you know,
I was gonna go back to Thomas Howard, if you don't mind, Mike,
please,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah.
So the book that you mentioned now, I'm gonna ask this because you big history. I mean, you teach history, all that. Would you still recommend that book today? Like you say, even though some terms out of date.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's actually, I wonder if I lend it out sometimes. Oh, I got it right here, back by my Batmobile. Hang on. I
Of
have
course you
things on
got
my
it.
shelf.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you can see. Yeah, you gotta. I just heard there was a video making fun of people like me the other day, like millennials or Xennials, which I am, which is like an in between Gen X and millennial. They said something like it was one of those honest trailers. They were talking about Masters of the Universe,
Oh yeah.
and the movie that just came out, and he said something like he made a reference like more 80s references than the shelf behind a millennial YouTuber. And
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
whoops. It's like, okay, yeah. And then down, you can't even see it off screen, but I've got, yep, Back to the Future, car, Batmobile. Like, that's me. Anyway, but yeah, this is Ignatius Press puts out. It was out of print for many years.
Okay.
And then Eric Metaxas, who's a great, kind of cultural commentator, runs the Socrates in the City seminars for many years. I think they got this with Ignatius Press, picking it back up a number of years ago. It was first assigned to me actually in my grad course, Sacraments grad course at Franciscan University. And this would have been like 2017 or 18, something like that. And at the time, it had been out of print for many years, and we had to get it like photocopied or something. But
Yes.
not long after that, interestingly enough, it went back into print with Ignatius. But I think you can get a Kindle version of it too. This is the one, like I said, I lend it out. This is the one that has, I think I gave away my first copy of it. But he goes through like he has a whole chapter on the phrase like he talks about the phrase like I feel like a dish rag, right? Like you've had a long day, you're exhausted. I feel like a dish rag. Is how do you know what a dish rag feels like? How do you know when someone says I feel like a dish rag? You know exactly what they mean. Like what is this like exterior, transcendent, universal experience of the human person that we're immediately connected to?
Right.
That shows up in every language. And actually, well, that's what he gets to here. Kind of dovetails with this. Where's it at here? Stratford Caldecott. If you don't mind, let me put him back up. He's another
Sure.
great thinker. He passed away from cancer a couple of years ago. Sadly, he was only in his, I think, late 50s or maybe 60s. But he was a great proponent of Catholic education and classical education. This is him here. And he was, I met his widow actually at a Chesterton conference a few years ago and just thanked her for him, and he's got a lot of great books on education and just sort of like the imagination, great literary man himself. But he said, this is really neat. This is in a book called Beauty for Truth's Sake on the Reenchantment of Education, which is a really cool one. And he's talking about symbolism. And I think this really gets at a lot of this idea of wonder as well. He said a tree, just so any tree, like go see a tree after this, look out your window, whatever. He said a tree is a natural symbol of the way the visible, for example, the trunk and the branches, comes from the invisible, roots and the seed. That linking higher and lower realities into one living pattern. As such, it can function either as a symbol of the world as a whole, right? So just a tree can symbolize the whole universe, right? Or of tradition, or of the church, or of a human being. These associations are not arbitrary, but precise and natural, even to a large extent predictable and consistent from one culture to another. The symbol and the archetype to which it refers are not separate things, For the symbol is simply the manifestation of the archetype in particular. And a phrase that he uses, I think he borrows from D.C. Schindler, who's a professor at the Pontifical John Paul II Institute, is this idea of meaning made tangible.
Okay.
Meaning made tangible. And what's really cool is, let me bring up this crazy quote here. So I love to use it, and I have it stretched out. It's anything for, I had it phrased this way: for anything to have meaning, there must be some meaner who means it. And then I always have this note, it's like, oh, everybody stay with me. Like, I'm giving this to an audience because they're all like, what? But when you think about it, when we just say something has meaning, I mean, it's just, that doesn't make any sense unless what you're saying by that is there's a few pieces that need to be there, right? That there is a source of the thing that, is being put out there to be understood as having meaning. So if I write something, like let's say I write a short story that's some sort of allegory for life, or like a Aesop's fable or something, right? Well, like, oh, that means something. I just read one this morning, actually. The cat hears that there's different versions of it, but like the mice, I think it's mice, might be birds, but the mice are, I think it's birds. These birds are sick and they're on death's door. So a cat hears about it, dresses up like a doctor and goes and knocks at the door, and they're like, they ask who it is, and he's like, oh, I want to hear how you're doing, and they basically say, like, we'll be doing much better as soon as we know you're gone. And the meaning of the story, like, an enemy, right? A villain may dress up any way they want, but you got to be wise no matter what condition you're in.
Sure. That's very true.
But that idea of like, there's someone telling that story, that like, I want you or the audience, like myself, to make certain connections in our own lives, or in the future in a possible circumstance where we might be threatened because we drop our guard. There's so much packed in like a little story like that. So we see that in stories. We see it, the sacramental nature of creation. So the idea of like, I mean, in theory, somebody could walk through this beautiful desert, sunrise, and just like, I don't know, like pencil out and just be like, okay, well, that's a this, and that's a this, and this is that, and like just look at all the parts, maybe respect them and everything, but miss the whole point. Like, look at that.
That's yeah.
Like why? Well, this plant, evolved because of this environment. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, but it's like, why? Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wards off certain, predators. Yeah, sure. Why? Like, what? Like, it's so, like, the same God who made I like this too, this little contrast. The same God who made that thing made this.
True.
Like, so what? So God is not just predatory. God is also like gentle, and like, what? Like, what? Like, what? How do those two things occupy the same reality? And so I think about things like with wonder and awe, like even the most mundane or the most simple things, like to learn how to really appreciate, age appropriate here for anyone watching who's under 21, of course, with the thing on the right. But, like when my wife and I went to Italy and, had incredible, food that was just simple, simple local ingredients.
Right.
But there's a story behind it, right? And you're eating it in a restaurant that's foundations go back to the time of Francis of Assisi, and it's like just like the layers of like the human story, even in something like a meal, and so along the way, there's these little lessons I offer people for all of us, right, to try to just appreciate more, just stop and smell the roses, as they say. This, right. Speaking of Assisi, you'll like this here, Billy. This was the view out my window.
Really?
Just right, like you wake up, yawn, and open the window and look out the window. Like when my wife and I were in Assisi for a couple of days, in this little like monastery that has like lay person housing that you can rent and stuff up on the top of the. I'm like, come on,
unbelievable, yeah.
And you just look at that, like never for a second am I tempted to be like, more nature.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, maybe if you live there every day, maybe. Yeah, but
and that's like we're vacationing, and like that's even in our neighborhood. That's a great point, because in our neighborhood, like sometimes we have a nature trail just down the road, and it's very easy for me to go a week, 2 weeks, 3, whatever, just not go to the end of my road and go on a walk down there. But it's also easy to do it, and to just make that effort. And I think it's important because I have this great quote from St. Augustine here. He said, question the beauty of the earth, question the beauty of the sea, right? The air distending and diffusing itself, question the beauty of the sky, etc. More. Question all these realities, all respond, see, we are beautiful. Their beauty is a profession. These beauties are subject to change. So he's pointing out here you have this beauty, but none of it's permanent, right? It all dies and it comes back the next year. But how is this? Where's this enduring sense of beauty across all these different expressions of this stuff coming from? And that's hitting on scripture too, right? Where
That's true.
I'm forgetting the reference off the top of my head, but you see it in the Psalms, you see it all over the place. This idea of these glorious, beautiful things, these powerful things, these simple, peaceful things in nature, right? Even massive storms that evoke awe and even fear and trembling in us. All of them are pointing beyond themselves, saying like we don't explain ourselves. Where do we come from?
Right.
And if we are like all of these characteristics, what must the one we're from be like? You
Yeah.
know?
And that's a
Um,
great point because I mean, if I may, Mike, like just
yeah.
in the past couple of years, South Dakota's had a lot of bad big tornadoes,
Mm,
but just when because I'm kind of big into that. I don't like storms, but I'm big into that
right.
type of stuff. And just watching the storm chasers, yeah, the thing is massive. Yeah, the thing is kind of tearing up houses and
Yeah.
perhaps injuring people, but in itself, it's still like a beautiful stuff. Like you said, the storm is still not answering to themselves. It's something else.
Right.
And if you watch enough of that, you do feel that kind of sets. And then the other thing I was going to point out too was this past weekend I was at my mom and dad's retirement house that they're almost done building, and just walking down the gravel road up in the hills when there's like no one around, absolutely beautiful country, and it's
Yeah.
just like you're taking that all in, and you do like, I wonder what this place looked like 20 years ago. I wonder what this
Right.
place looked like couple centuries ago. And then you think of God in that creation because you see all the plats, you see all the boys, and you just kind of wonder, like, that's just really cool. So you do wonder that.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
I mean, the overall point is, I think AI is taking a lot of wonder out of us. Like maybe a little mentioned at the start, but
Yeah.
because it's not like, well, I'm just going to check my phone. I'm not going to wonder what I could
Right.
do about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, it's so interesting too because I was just thinking about this with the ocean a few weeks ago because we were at the shore on the East Coast,
Okay.
and the place we were staying had there's still plaques and stuff around. It was Ocean City, New Jersey, and the place we were staying, you'll see places around if anyone's been to Ocean City that will reference Hurricane Sandy or some of these big weather events and stuff that may or may not have destroyed that property. And I'm thinking about like, well, how like natural disasters even in these things, and I think even in that, I feel like now, I'm not saying that this would give you much consolation in the moment, right, or in the wake
Right.
of it, or if you've lost someone in a storm or something terrible. But if someone would ask me, well, what do you think about that? What's the explanation for that? Well, um, nothing lasts forever, right? Not even the worst storm. And there's hope to be found on the other side of something like that. That even the worst thing nature can do. Um, doesn't last forever. It goes away. The worst tornado dissipates. And of course, if anyone has lost their life in that moment, we of course trust their souls to the Lord. We try to remember that this whole life isn't all there is,
Right.
and that we're only here for a time. So I feel like there can be, again, doesn't mean that I'm ready to hear that in that moment, or it might take years for me, or I might be very upset, and lamenting and furious, or I don't want to talk to God, right? All of those things are real. And I've been there, in different ways in my own life. The thing about the ocean that hit me was which is my favorite personally. I can't ever get enough of it. But it hit me. I was like, there was a big storm one night, and I was watching it, and there was massive lightning. I mean, it was something out of like Marvel. Again, like some, I thought like, I don't know, like a multiversal porthole is opening or something. It was crazy, but
Sure.
it wasn't right at us. It was out to sea. So like it's relatively calm and like just breezy. I'm sitting on the deck at night and I'm watching this storm that like if anybody's out in that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's deadly. And what hit me was it's the exact same ocean that could completely destroy me, but that is also like if you're right there, it's just this gentle, loving, beautiful, incredibly calming experience, just sitting with your toes and the shore even out to your waist and just the gentle waves and stuff. And I think that can be an image for God of the
Right.
absolute, like we have no idea who we're talking to when we
Yeah.
talk to him. Like he's not tame.
Right.
you know like so the Lord, like that's there's places in scripture where people, they try to deal with the Lord peer to peer and they die, because not
Yeah.
because he's cruel, but because he's awesome, he's powerful, he's dreadful, he's the magnitude of God, but he's also the lamb.
Yeah.
He's the softest, he's the still small voice, right, that's not breaking the rocks and stuff around Elijah. He's both, somehow.
Right.
And I think, this is a great quote here. Donald DeMarco, another one I want to mention quick here. Just got a couple more I want to share, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Dr. DeMarco's great. He's a professor emeritus, last I saw here at St. Jerome's University. And he's also, I think he's taught for many years at Holy Apostles College. He's with Human Life International. I love this quote from him. He's an essayist who writes an awful lot for different Catholic publications. He says, this is great. We'll read it slowly here. The wonder that ignites the philosophical mind also allows us to be charmed by an intelligibility we do not fully grasp. Right? So to pause there for a sec, like there's not just something, but someone who's doing stuff.
Right.
Like, and if you pay attention long enough, you start to like, yeah. As someone I know likes to put it, just I think there's more going on than I can see. Like there's that just I think something's up, right?
Even,
That spidey
yeah.
sense, right?
Even if
And
you're an
he says,
atheist, you should probably think of that. I mean,
well, yeah, and there's different
yeah.
ways to account when people try to account for it, but they're just so
Right.
unsatisfying. It's much more likely, I think, that no, the vast majority of humanity has been on to this. That's the divine. We've misunderstood what that is, but to say it doesn't exist it just is insulting, I think, to
Yeah.
all of human experience, except here, in the West, for the last 100 years.
Sure.
Like that's just to me a really, really arrogant kind of approach. But he goes on, he says it's to be intrigued by the effects of a cause that remains hidden from us. And so that, like, I see these things rippling through the visible and detectable, but they don't come from there, And I love this.
That's
It's potentially knowable, right? Like if I
potentially,
just,
yeah.
hey, maybe he'll reveal himself like the burning bush, let's say, or something once in a while. Or he's like, hey, it's me, ta-da.
Right.
So wonder activates the mind and sets it on a course of discovery. Awe is the momentary feeling of being spellbound in the presence of the something that stirs our sense of wonder, or the someone. Like I just, those moments where I'm in the right place at the right time,
Right.
And sometimes it's funny. Like, okay, I'll tell you, I wasn't going to share this. This is a rude one. Let me skip over Socrates. He had a great quote. He said, wonder's the feeling of a philosopher, and philosophy begins in wonder. But for this, I'll just share here this beautiful nature scene. But I
Right.
was, this bird, it was, it's just this, I really believe that God has a sense of humor.
Oh yeah.
And this bird, when I was deployed in Iraq, years ago, I'm walking out to the truck. We have this like little Hilux, piece of junk, old like pickup truck, and I'm gonna drive down to like the dining hall on post for some lunch. And I walk out. It's like 120 degrees outside, and like I'm getting my keys out, and I'm like fumbling with my keys, and I get to the parking lot, and I look up, and I just stop because there's a pigeon just sitting on top of the truck, and he's just sitting on top of the truck, just staring directly into my eyes. And it's like the creepiest. He's just like, and he's just staring at me, and he's like, and he's just for like 10 seconds doing this weird thing, like showing off and all this. And then he poops on top of the truck and just stands up, steps away, stares at me, hops off the truck, to the ground, doesn't fly, just hops off the truck, lands on the ground, and just walks away, like into the distance. And I never saw him fly. Like, and I was like, what was that all about? Like, and again, like people would say I'm crazy, fair enough, to like even remember that, let alone think there's some meaning in it. And I'm not overplaying it here, but sometimes I get the impression that was just like, like it's just like some kind of like, yeah, nature's weird too, right? Like it's
Right.
not
Yeah.
entirely predictable, and sometimes it's like just I don't know, wants to mess with you or something.
Right.
So
And then, well, it's those little
yeah,
things that stick with you too. I mean, like you said, it's the wonder, so that sticks with you,
yeah.
and it's those little moments in that special place and time that sticks with you. So,
Well, and I have more than one story when it comes to birds pooping apparently for some reason. But another one, I was trying to impress my wife on one of our first dates, and like we're at this gelato place in Washington D.C. and like out on the street, and we watched this bird just leap off the fence across the street, this crowded D.C. street, and it swoops, like directly across the street, flies right over me, and just unloads right on my
oh,
chest as I'm eating ice cream, and my wife just lost it. And we were just dating. We were, like, and it was just the funniest thing of like all the things you do to try to impress somebody, all the plans you make.
right,
Like we go through life like I'm like this and this and this. I'm gonna do that, and I feel like sometimes the Lord is like, watch this, woo.
yep,
Just some little thing to be like, here, watch how easy it is to completely unravel all of your plans. And I
right,
think sometimes that can just be a humorous invitation, if nothing else. What do you do with something like that? That's just a gross thing. You're annoyed, you get upset, whatever, or you just go, I don't know, maybe it's a humility invitation, which reminds me, another St. Augustine thing, funny enough here. I know we're coming to the end already, but just some things to think about. This just came up today, actually.
okay,
A friend of mine, I added this today. A friend of mine sent me she sends a daily meditation. Shout out to Andrea, if Andrea is watching this. And it was this quote from St. Augustine where he was basically talking about we should try to be more like a rock than smoke. Like, and these are the pictures I picked because I picked this rock here because if you look at it, it's a pretty big rock, but like it's just a rock. It's sitting there, doesn't really do anything, right?
right,
It's broad, it's laying flat, really low to the ground, um, and over on the right, you have smoke, right? There's this fire, and it's impressive, and the smoke is rising up and getting the attention of everybody for miles around. But Augustine's point was, look, the rock, it may not be showy, it's laying flat to the ground, but it's sturdy. It's down to earth, so to speak. It's not trying to live beyond, it's not trying to get attention from anybody. And in this picture, I like that it's even being pounded by the waves of the sea, which it's withholding it. Like it can stand, some pressure. It can stand some difficult times, because it's solid. It's well rooted. Whereas smoke, the more it goes up and up, it just completely dissipates and it's gone. And you
right,
think of people like the hottest celebrities and stars around, and how much depression and how many horrible things happen in so many of their lives because like you can't. It's always smoke. It's
yeah,
always like, oh, look at that, and it's like it's dissipating, it's going away, it's clouding things up. It's not. So I think that was an interesting sort of analogy he was giving, the difference between humility and pride, and the
that's
nature,
true,
that diffusive nature of pride, as opposed to knowing your definitions, your boundaries, not biting off more than you can chew, right? I
right,
think sometimes we, even in ministry, we take on. I've done this. I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna do YouTube, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do 50 things. It's like I don't know. How about maybe I should just try to do like maybe one or two things really well
right.
sometimes. So,
And no,
um,
and the thing with
yeah,
smoke
go ahead.
and pride, if you don't mind, Mike,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this happens a lot with listening to music. So, country music, listening right here, and it's kind of like my dad throughout the years he's mentioned this countless times, and he's like, "Remember so and so? They were so big back 5 years ago, and now where are they? They're gone.
Yeah.
They go up like smoke. Everyone loves them. They get out of this attention, but then they get up a little bit, and a few years later, they're gone. Or
Yeah.
like you mentioned, depression and all that stuff. Maybe some life, events happen, and like the wind pushes the smoke around. Well, that stuff does
Yeah.
too. So I really do like that as well because
Yeah.
like you mentioned earlier, you get that sudden gratification kind of okay. People see me, people like me, people this and that. but that's not everlasting. That's not the divine life that we call to an eternity, where
Yeah.
a walk is way more a foundation, and you probably would get more. At least I feel like if I'm staying neutral and quiet, a lot more compliments, a lot more people, even again, I'm not being prideful noticing you, but people notice like, hey, he's walked solid in his faith, or hey, she's like just a great person overall, whatever the case might be. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of spitballing a little bit here, but
Yeah.
so I do like the analogy because that's 100% true.
Well, and I think too, like even not to name too many names, but just one that comes to mind is like even in the industry, like somebody like Andrea Bocelli, who's been
Oh,
a
sure.
very famous singer for many many years. I don't know much about him, a little bit, but he's somebody who, of course, just phenomenal talent, incredible God given talent. But he's his 60s, maybe 70s, close to 70s by now. Let me double check. How old is Andrea Bocelli? I don't want to 60s, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
67 as of this
Okay.
recording. And he's someone who, like last couple things I've seen from him, are these beautiful things like, a bunch of stuff like with his son, and performing with his son. And there's that beautiful song that came out a couple years ago, Fall on Me by them, which you should all look up because you'll cry, you know.
Okay. I will.
Um and but the video is really beautiful. It's a very bright white sort of like hanger almost at the end. And what's a neat theme about it is throughout the song and the way the video is done is that you see all these like photos of like, when his son was little and like, it's this tender kind of experience. Um, but it's this, you know, mega star father helping his sort of rising star son, who is, in my opinion, not nearly as legendary talent, as his dad. I think he's an incredible singer. Don't get me wrong.
Like,
Um, Largely because of his genes, I bet, and his training. Um, but this idea of like, there's this motif through the video of like Andrea, kind of letting his son take center stage a little bit. And I just feel like here's someone who's a mega celebrity, but who there's at least something in this very human thing of like, you get old,
mhm.
like times change. You're not, like you're gonna be gone someday, and it's the next generation after you. As I always quote Master Yoda in one of, if not my least favorite Star Wars movies, but one of the best quotes when he says to Luke, who's despairing over losing Kylo Ren, right? And he says something to the effect of, "We are who they grow beyond." That idea of there's gonna be an end. Like I don't have forever. I've got a certain amount of time here on Earth. I've got a certain amount of possible experiences that can reasonably be in my life. And there's an edge, there's a border, there's a boundary to that, and that can scare us. Um, but I think the reason it scares us is because we know deep down we're meant for a boundaryless, infinite, eternal heaven.
Like,
Doesn't mean you don't have, but like we somehow we'll be experiencing that as finite creatures. I don't know how that works. I got a master's degree in theology, and I think I understand less about how that works the further I genuinely go into the mystery of it. And that's the idea: is it you keep going, like you never stop, you never go, oh, okay, I've got it all now.
like,
Like no, it's this whole experience of life. This whole experience of wonder. There's so much more to say, but that's basically my thesis. Is just some we can, I think, all benefit from studying wonder more, but also trying to be more open to maybe putting down the devices, to planning times to actually like go on a walk without my phone or something, or just really be right there in the moment and experience these things. Pay attention to a delicious meal,
like,
be paying attention for those moments because they're all around us.
yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. And I would say, I mean, make sure you wonder about your favorite thing too, whether that's, storm chasing, whether that's um trees like we mentioned, whether that's whatever. I mean, because I mean, we all wonder about a lot, most everything we kind of might wonder about. Um, but that kind of is like one thought and then it's out the brain, where if you, again, like you mentioned, put down the phone and wonder and take a hike. I mean, really wonder about what your favorite thing is. So if again,
yeah,
if you're in the healthcare, wonder about why does this happen? Why does that happen?
yeah,
I mean it gets you motivated, it gets you, it's good for your, your mental, physical state. So But let AI and the phones take over your wonder, because wonder is a good
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So, what was the video? Was it the Fall you said with Andre?
Fall on Me. I think it was
Fall on Me.
2017, 2018, I think.
Okay.
I think that one came out. It's already old. They've done something else. You know, there's that it was A Time to Say Goodbye or whatever that song they famously that shows up from time to time. They did that together too. I'm like, would you guys knock it off? But don't. Keep doing it. It's
Yeah.
it's good. So, but yeah, those are just some of my thoughts, and
Okay.
encourage people to, certainly keep in touch if they want, because I explore this stuff from time to time.
Sure. Well, one thing with you, Mike, I always know it's a good deep dive, well spoken conversation we have. So I really again appreciate your time and your request at this topic, because you know me, I'm like, I don't really care as long as you're happy to come on, let's choose a topic. And when you
Yeah.
mentioned that, I'm like, this sounds very interesting. I wonder what we're gonna really talk about. And even just prepping for the show, I was still wondering where you were going with it. So
Yeah.
I really thank you for your time today and making this happen.
No, my pleasure, Billy. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Catholic Table Talk podcast, where everything Catholic is on the table. Don't forget to subscribe to Catholic Table Talk on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes delivered directly to you every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern.